So Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 1, the first step in God realization, text 11. Karbajana Prabhu, at the Sanskrit version, please.
Ichchatam akuto bhayam yoginam nripanyarnetam harir namano kirtanam etan nirvidyamananam ichchatam akuto bhayam yoginam nripanyarnetam harir namano kirtanam etat
Etat, it is Nirvidyamananam, of those who are completely free from all material desires. Ichchatam, of those who are desirous of all sorts of material enjoyment. Akutabhayam, free from all doubts and fear. Yoginam, all who are self-satisfied. Nripa, or kin. Nirnitam, decided truth. Hare, of the Lord Shri Krishna. Nama, holy name. Anu, after someone, always. Kirtanam, chanting. So now the translation of this text. O king, constant chanting of the holy name of the Lord after the ways of the great authorities is the doubtless and fearless way of success for all, including those who are free from all material desires, those who are desirous of all material enjoyment, and also those who are self-satisfied by dint of transcendental knowledge. It's not the purport of Srila Prabhupada, it's quite voluminous. So in the previous verse, the great necessity for attaining attachment to Mukunda has been accredited. So Mukunda is used here. God has a lot of names, so this is one of his names. So here the attachment to Mukunda is used. For example, attachment to Krishna can be understood in the wrong way. So that's why another word is used here as the source of enjoyment, as a reservoir, the initial reservoir, the source of Satchitananda Vigraha. So Krishna could be understood as an attachment to enjoyment. And a lot of people, they do understand it this way, such as games of Krishna. So we could entertain ourselves in this way. So if we meditate on Krishna, on his form of a transcendental Cupid, and as a result, some kind of a sahaji appears, so I want to do it just for the senses gratification. I just want to copy God. So that's why Krishna's name needs some purification in order to get attached specifically to him, to his name. First we have to get through a deep purification. But now we are talking about an attachment to Mukunda, the one that liberates us from these attachments and desires to enjoy. So here, his name of Mukunda is used, but the ones who still want to dwell in this material world, nothing will help them. Even chanting of the Maha Mantra, reading Srimad Bhagavatam or instructions of Acharyas, nothing is going to help them. So that's why you have to have a desire to get rid, to escape from this material world. So we have to develop an attachment to Mukunda. So there are different types of persons who desire to attain success in different varieties of pursuits. Generally, the persons are materialists who desire to enjoy the fullest extent of material gratification. Next to them are the transcendentalists who have attained perfect knowledge about the nature of material enjoyment and thus are aloof from such an illusory way of life. More or less, they are satisfied in themselves by self-realization. Above them are the devotees of the Lord, who neither aspire to enjoy the material world nor desire to get out of it. They are after the satisfaction of the Lord. So factually there are the liberated persons, but there are those who are not aspire to the liberation, but they actually want to get some sensual enjoyment. Another category, they've already realized the illusory world, and they try to find a way out inside of themselves. They try to follow some Vedic instructions, and they try to find this happiness inside themselves. So they're not liberated, but they may feel liberated without even having contact with the source of everything. And the third category are the devotees who are by fact liberated already. So their purpose is to satisfy Lord Krishna. In other words, the devotees of the Lord do not want anything on their personal account. If the Lord desires, the devotees can accept all sorts of material facilities. And if the Lord does not desire this, the devotees can leave aside all sorts of facilities, even up to the limit of salvation. So these devotees, they have nothing except Krishna in their hearts. Nor are they self-satisfied because they want a satisfaction of the Lord only. A pure devotee, he does this, he practices this sadhana not because for himself, but to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is a pure person. In this verse, Sri Shukadeva Goswami recommends the transcendental chanting of the holy name of the Lord. It's actually recommended for all these categories, for all categories of people. For those who are already trying to refuse all this material enjoyment, for the liberated souls, by offenseless chanting and hearing of the holy name of the Lord, one becomes acquainted with the transcendental form of the Lord, and then with the attributes of the Lord, and then with the transcendental nature of his pastimes, etc. Here it is mentioned that one should constantly chant the holy name of the Lord after hearing it from authorities. This means that hearing from the authorities is the first essential. Hearing of the holy name gradually promotes one to the stage of hearing about his form, his attributes, his pastimes, and so on. And thus the necessity of the chanting of his glories develops successively. This process is recommended not only for the successful execution of devotional service. So look, when you start chanting holy names, the process of getting closer to Krishna is started. And notice that ordinary transcendentalists, they are not actually interested in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Some of them even deny his personality. But if someone starts chanting his name, this interest gets awakened. So this interest, it gets awakened. But it all starts with chanting the holy names of God, and we have to be doing it constantly, non-stop. That's a necessary condition. We start and we constantly chant it, so that material names and forms will not have any influence on our mind again. So it's recommended not only for the successful execution of devotional service, but also even for those who are materially attached. According to Sri Shukadeva Goswami, this way of attaining success is an established fact, concluded not only by him, but also by all other previous acharyas. Therefore, there is no need of further evidence. The process is recommended not only for the progressive students in different departments of ideological success, but also for those who are already successful in their achievement as fruity workers, as philosophers, or as devotees of the Lord. So you see, this method, it suits both devotees and non-devotees equally. So let me give you an example, material example. Material science, it has opened up a lot about the human mind, about its name, because the holy scriptures, they used to be not attainable for the materialists. So there were no material things in there, just like agnostics do. They had to run some experiments to understand it. And there are no such experiments described in Holy Scriptures. It just says that there are many forms of lives, human forms of lives in the universe, but scientists, they have no confirmation in that. And then it also says that there is life on sun, but scientists, they don't get it. There's no proof for that for them. They say it's impossible. The modern science, you see, somehow it has led people to this understanding. Scientists have opened some fluctuations, some changings. They presume that there might be some life in other dimensions, not only based on water, but also based on sunlight. So they try to contemplate on this topic. And the person, it seems like, is not so dumb anymore, just like back in times where scientists used to be burned on fires. We see it has turned out that scientists, they have more capabilities than people think they have. Just materialists, they're trying to open their soul in this, to discover the soul in this way. They come up with all the scientific discoveries, and they think that they're approaching to some facts, to some intelligent processes. So that's why for a modern person, it's not so difficult to understand that there are some other forms of life, some other worlds. In the book of It's a Journey to Other Planets, scientist has covered this topic. So for us, modern people, we can actually accept this hypothesis that there's a spiritual world, spiritual forms, spiritual processes and dimensions and spaces, just like other dimensions. But in the previous epochs, where the science was still on a low level, these people, they were very constrained, very limited in this extent. They couldn't even understand the form of God, His qualities, anything else but the things that they could hear and see. And in any ways, the only way is the holy name. So those who were chanting holy names, they started understanding what was going on. They could perceive it in a total another way. They understood that the energy of God is totally limitless, and they were living in just some kind of His energy, His gunas. When gunas change, and you see this world differently. So they could understand this world through the gunas of material nature. So Vedas, they propose to examine gunas. And after that, a person starts understanding, starts seeing this world in a totally another way. But jnana, you see, the science, it has attained a lot these days. That's true. But anyways, it doesn't lead people to the truth. They still keep on making all these theories, but the quality of their lives, it doesn't change. Just as Prabhupada says, well, you may go to some other planets, some other dimensions, but there's no way back from there. It's a one-way journey. So the science proposes us building spaceships back and forth, like a two-way ticket, without being attached to material things. But the Holy Name gives us a full understanding of what's going on, what the energy of God is, and who we are in this spiritual world. So it all gets opened up with the help of Holy Name, not with the help of Vedic texts. So for some people it's just a mythology, until a person starts chanting holy names. Srila Jiva Goswami instructs that chanting of the holy name of the Lord should be loudly done, and it should be performed offenselessly as well, as recommended in the Padma Purana. One can deliver himself from the effects of all sins by surrendering himself unto the Lord. One can deliver himself from all offenses at the feet of the Lord by taking shelter of His holy name. You see, it's almost impossible to criticize the holy name. It cannot be perceived by material senses, because the person does not trust the sound. The person does not think of it to be an object in the material world. An object, in our understanding, is a material thing, the one that we can touch and see. So how can you criticize something that is not an object? Holy name is not an object for the perception of materialists, so that's why it could not be criticized or offended. So it's just a sound for the materialists. People, they usually treat it neutrally when they start chanting mantra. So I chant some kind of a transcendental sound. That's what they think. But then they start having some questions like, why Krishna is wearing these kind of clothes? Why is he Hindu? What is his flute about? What does it have to do with God? And cows around him? A whole lot of questions. So why does he have fun with women at night, having all these dancing parties with them? When a person does not identify himself with the material things, he will be thinking differently. So we have to attain nirguna, no qualities, no gunas. So these people, they deny everything. Form and pastimes. So for the person, the only thing that is important is to chant the holy name. But the point is that the holy name has all the other aspects of his personality, both his form and qualities and his pastimes, his lilas. They're all opened up gradually, very gradually, without agitating the mind of a person. And when you, for example, if a person starts chanting holy names and he starts having some visions or something, people will think he's crazy. Even the person himself will think of himself to be crazy, insane. So remember, there's a tale about a fisherman who has caught Lord Chaitanya, or Arjuna, when he saw the universal form of Lord. So you see, it's not normal for the psychological system of a person. It could actually shatter your psychological system. You're not ready for that. But if Krishna is present here, He's present, He'll protect you. But if all people get a chance to see the universal form of Lord, they would all go. They would all go to the psychiatric hospitals. Back in time, so that was a place in the United States, the psychiatrical hospital, and some of the devotees, they got there as well. So the first disciple of Prabhupada, the very first one that got initiated by him, so he came out of hippies, so he was just walking down the street in with the shabby clothes, barefoot in New York. So he had a t-shirt, ripped t-shirt, so he shaved his head, he got shikha, he put some tilaka, he even put some beads on his neck. So he was walking down the street and chanting Hare Krishna, and of course he got to a psychiatric hospital. As soon as people saw him, they called to some special service, a car came and took him to this hospital. So by the way, he got initiated, he wasn't the first disciple actually, so he was late for the first initiation because he was taken to this hospital. But anyways, he was the first disciple, so he was supposed to get initiated first. So this is called a sudden spiritual development. So the devotees are shown this ecstasy, and he or she feels on a spiritual platform. He starts acting funny, walking down the streets barefoot, half naked. So I saw a devotee back in time traveling with a like a net sack, you know, just like a bag looking like a potato sack. We used to have these sacks back in the Soviet Union. People use those ones. It's sort of transparent. So he would just carry a frying pan in there, probably something else. So he was traveling, just having this frying pan in his sack, barefoot, in some bath slippers sometimes. So he would just walk around the town in this sack. So the other devotee, he has made some chanting beads and a bag for the beads. So this bag was transparent actually, so that everyone could see it, what he had inside. And of course people think, wow, this is like he's totally insane. So that's about a personality, character. But usually this sudden spiritual development, even if it happens in the presence of some really great Vaishnavas. So for example, imagine we see Prabhupada for the first time in our life, or his disciples, very spiritual disciples, and you get this instant, sudden spiritual development just thanks to them. So that's why it's very important to understand to realize the personality of God, not just the spiritual development and think of ourselves as liberated people, but the sense is that we have to feel the personality of Godhead, the Lord, the Parampara, and the presence of the Lord. That's what we have to use, what we have to feel. And this presence is provided by the holy name of God, not the deities in the age of Kali, not just Vedic texts, Puranas. They're all still hidden until we hear holy name from the mouth of a pure devotee. Only after this, all the rest of the things, they're opened as reality of the highest category. It's not like we're dreaming it. So this is all said in Bhagavad Gita. For the enlightened person, And for the person that is a materialist, they things are totally different. They perceive this this universe, this world, in a different way. What is night for an enlightened person, a day for a materialist, for a sleeping person. And what Puranas are saying about becomes a reality thanks to the holy name of God. So I've read just a part of this purport from the second canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, first chapter. So I also wanted to quote some interesting citations for you, give you some interesting quotes. So there's a new book, so I kept it in secret. I'll be the first one who's gonna read this quote out loud. So this book has been published quite recently, probably. I was sent this book from Ukraine. It was sent to me from Ukraine. So it's all about holy names, about the disciples of Lord Chaitanya, Bhakti-San Saraswati and Srila Prabhupada, and all the different Goswamis, a compilation of all these quotes. So I have this book. You see, the competitors, they're always ahead of me. That's what I was talking about. There's always a problem with the competitors. Garbhajana Prabhu. Have you read it? You haven't read it, so I'm gonna be the first one, okay. I'm relieved right now. I'll be the first one. So I'll start reading from the page number 9. Srila Bhakti Saraswati Thakur. It's from his instructions. Jayapataki Das. Probably that's his disciple, most probably. So the name is Krishna himself. It's already enough to understand. Name is Krishna. So this name, it possesses the absolute power. So chant holy name out loud, loudly, and hear it at the same time, listen to it at the same time. So when you say something, you may not even listen to what you're saying. You know, there's a skill, like a quality of our mind. When we say something, first we say some things that are well thought of, like an introduction. So we react to something adequately. And then we just get interested in our own speech. And this is like essential enjoyment already, and we try to say some things that other people may not even like. So people start listening to this person, and this person starts enjoying it. But the sound of his voice, it just captures him and leads him to the sensual enjoyment. And in this way, his speech becomes weak and worthless. So that's why it says here, you have to listen to the sense of the holy name. You can be listening to a fun melody, fine tune, that I enjoy, but you have to listen to the Krishna's name. You're not supposed to separate it. So Prakriti is getting separated, consciousness is getting separated. So we have to understand how fast I'm doing it, the quality, and I may get distracted by many things, so I have to chant and listen to it parallelly. So it's a complicated name. So it's me who does the chanting. So am I listening to myself or the name? So how do I hear the name, but not to my voice? So if you are truly chanting and listening, then eventually you will achieve the perfection. So it's eventually, soon. It's not going to take long. The name is Krishna himself. Serve to this name with determination. So it's not just about listening to yourself, but listen to the holy name. Although I'm repeating it with my own tongue, but I'm not this tongue, I'm not this body. And when I hear the holy name, I will understand that the tongue is just an instrument given to me to chant holy names. There's no other purpose for it, including the forms of Krishna and qualities of Krishna's. I can talk about God. That's what tongue is. It's given to me just to talk about God. So this is all confirmed in all the holy scriptures that a lot of saints, they say that now I have found my truthful purpose. Now I understand why I have eyes and ears and tongue. To hear about Krishna, to talk about Krishna. And see this form. So now, you see, it's all understandable, it's all clear. I understand I have all these instruments, like my body, and all these organs. One more quote. In Kali Yuga, Mahabhagavatam is the person who uses Hari Bhajana as Kirtanam. So this is Mahabhagavatam in Kali Yuga. So it's the one who performs Nama Kirtanam. And in this way gets liberated from the circle of birth and death. Mahabhagavata performs Kirtanam. So it's used in Bhakti Hari Vilasa. So furthermore, we have some other citations from Premivarta Jagannatha Pandit. So I'll read the translation. You know who is glorified here? His name is in Pramadhanam. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, that's what we say always. Because he, Sri Namacharya, Lord Chaitanya said that he is the teacher of the holy name. So on this earth, there has never been no one greater than Haridas Thakur, because he has discovered the secret of the holy name to the whole world. We have to know that a person born in a family of Muslims, back in those times, such people, they were not allowed in Hindu temples, and they couldn't be considered Brahmins because they didn't even have kasta. They didn't belong to kasta. They were kind of beyond the system. So no one has ever been greater than Haridas Thakur, that was presenting the whole Nama Tattva for us in its perfection. So that's what chanting of holy names is. That's a great example. So a person having no advantages in the material sense, in the cultural sense, he has become Mahabhagavatam of the highest level, just knowing the holy name, the secret of hearing and chanting holy names of Lord Krishna. So this means that we can do it too. By the mercy of Haridas Thakur, we are not born in a privileged families. We are also in this category, the Yavanas and the Rakshasas and Lechas. So we've collected all the impurities of Kali Yuga. And he is as great as he pours his mercy on everyone chanting holy name. But he said, it's not about the name that liberates you, but just a shadow of the holy name. Only a very brave person could say that. And back in the time, of course, he faced some resistance. Some of the brahmanas, he has cursed him. I put here in these words. He said that I would cut your nose off for these words. Just imagine, back in those times, it was very dangerous to say those things. So this Brahman called him lechas and Brahmanam. So he started defending him. But Haridas Thakur said, not only the holy name, but the shadow liberates you. So he confirmed it. He didn't get afraid. So he was just standing on his truth. And that person criticizing Haridas Thakur, he suffered a lot afterwards. So Namacharya Haridas Thakur is the best of people because he was chanting the holy names of God. He was preaching about it. So now we understand who the best of all the people is, who chants himself and he spreads this gift to the others. You see, people were worshipping Jesus Christ for spreading this knowledge, and then he suffered, he got sacrificed, everything. Just imagine how much Haridas Thakur has suffered. People would just die on markets. So that's how Haridas Thakur was spreading the holy name in this way. So the one serving the holy name, following Haridas Thakur, gets the highest perfection in chanting. It's from Prama Vivarta. Glorifying Haridas Thakur, of course, we glorify the holy name, of course, undoubtedly, because they're interconnected, inseparably. So you have to understand that it's really dangerous to criticize devotees that chant holy names. It's like I can understand that I chant holy name and I'm connected to Krishna, but the other person chanting holy name is also connected to Krishna. The next chapter here, the principle of following. So we follow the steps of Haridas Thakur. So there's a quote from Mahabharata here. Dry logic does not lead to the final summary. So one who thinks that he's the only right person, righteous person, he's not going to be considered a wise man. So wise men, they cannot repeat all the things after the others. So wise man should say all things differently. That's why you can see he's a different person. If he just copies someone else, he will not be considered a wise man, a sage. In Vedas there are many chapters, but just by studying them, you cannot find the truth leading to the understanding of all the principles of religion. No one knows religion. Otherwise, there would be no need for the prophets and avatars. A person cannot understand the principles of religion. This is all very well described in Mahabharata. Even Bhishma Dev got confused. Dronacharya. There were Shakuni in there, was Shakuni and Duryodhana, all these Mahajanas. They all got confused. Even Vyasadeva could not fix this situation. The truthful sense of the religious testaments is hidden in heart. So that's why Shastras, they state that the truthful path, is the one chosen by Mahajavas, that Mahajavas were following. That's the only truthful path. So we said this is truth and this is not truth. That's what we do. There are no such perfect people. Until we have this physical body, we are imperfect. There's a perfect path, though, that Mahajanas follow. So Bhishmadev, through Adharma, there's an amazing story. So that's his path. And anyways, you see, he got confused. But he was realizing that this was the will of the personality of Godhead. He was taken to this path until the end. So this is a very, very tough question. And only by following the steps of Mahajanas, you could understand these principles of religion. If you don't have this pure spiritual knowledge, then bhajan is impossible. If Sambandha Jnana is not installed, the whole name is not going to get manifested. So pay attention, this is very important for us. This line specifically. So the quality of chanting, a lot of things depend on it. So by performing your service with the pure understanding of jnana, you will overcome this false ego. Bhaktivedanta Thakur. So if you don't have Sambandha Jnana, you will not overcome your false ego, even by chanting holy names. So having surrendered to the lotus feet of Sadhguru, we can develop the inclination to the path they show us. So no one is supposed to give themselves to us, but the path. In the material world, in a guna of passion, people are looking for some great personalities. They think that they will save them. No, not the people. We have to follow the path that they show us. You're not supposed to get dependent on acharyas or gurus. You have to follow the path. And what refers the method of worshipping that is made up by our mind, so a state of mind of enjoyment dominates here. So I just want to enjoy, and everything that looks good to me I will be doing. And I will not depend on the instructions of Sadhguru. So this state of mind does not correspond to their devotional service. So where does bhajan come from if you don't have all these qualities? So Gaudiya Mathya and Bhaktivedanta Saraswati, he was having these discussions. So they were discussing Namatattva there. Sankirtana Yagya were taking place there always, and they would discuss these topics constantly. So chanting Sambandha Jnana, always together. So you read Bhagavad Gita, read Srimad Bhagavatam and chant and chant and chant. So there are some great souls, they would just So just go deep into chanting, but you have to understand one thing. Bhajananandi, for example, so he could hear the name of Krishna. That's the one who has already overcome his false ego. He can chant for as many times, for as much time as he wants, whenever and wherever. If you're not still liberated from ahankara, it's like Prabhupada says, if you've achieved this level, you just stay there, don't change your position. It's quite interesting that Lord Chaitanya hasn't changed his name as well, even when taking sannyasa. He said that it doesn't matter, don't change your position, just follow the instructions for your entire life. Preach. That's what Lord Chaitanya wanted us to do. Don't change your position. If someone wants to become Bhajanandi, it happens by the will from above. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he wasn't planning on becoming an acharya and spreading all this knowledge and all Bharatavarsha. It has come down to him from above. Prabhupada, he wasn't planning on going to America as well. He had no idea what he would be doing. No one actually knew about that. And then when already preaching, he said that probably it's me, the general that Lord Chaitanya was talking about. So it could be probably me. I'm just following the instructions of my guru. It's not just a wimp, just because I want it. In the spiritual practice, the main thing is that you listen to the instructions. Listen to the holy name, chant and listen to it. Doesn't matter where you will live, what kind of project you'll be developing. All the rest of these things, they are not so important. They could be present in your life, could be not. If you still have false ego, anything can happen. You have to be careful. You have to be cautious. So our aim is chanting and listening to the glory of holy name. There's nothing else that is so important. If someone worshipping and does not feel any happiness inside himself, his actions could not be called service. This is all Maya, wearing the clothing of a servant. Even though we're not so literate, but if you don't have this pure understanding, bhajan is impossible. So you know that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had a lot of disciples, thousands probably, and most of them, they were illiterate. They were poor educated. They didn't know any Sanskrit, of course. So he said, even though you're not educated, you have to know. You have to know the spiritual science. Every person can understand spiritual science, even if you're not well educated, because the name itself gets opened. And acharyas, they open for us everything with the help of the holy name. You know, these material things, you have them according to your karma, but the spiritual things, anyone can understand them. You just chant and listen to the holy name, and everything gets opened gradually. Acharyas has given us this path. We just follow the path. While following it, you will see everything for yourselves. Just like when you drive in a car, ride in a train, You see that everything comes to us. You just have to move, and the path will open itself. So why do we have to theorize to make up these theories? What's the sense of them? There's another way, another approach. You just move along this path, and the path will show you. Doesn't matter if you're an educated person or you're not. Doesn't matter. You just keep on moving. So that's the power of the holy name, the potency. So Bhakti Thakur. So we said in 1923 by Bhakti Saraswati Thakur.
Конкурентов мы устраним чуть позже. Установим свою полную абсолютную власть таким образом. Вот Карабах раскрыл все-таки там такая же книга, вы видите.
So Karabhajana Prabhu has the same book. So Karabhajana Prabhu, you see, it's more beautiful. The book that I have, I bought it first.
Вот драгоценная книга, да, правда.
Very precious book.
Я думаю, она будет доступна всем преданным.
I think it will be accessible to all the devotees. Anyways, we could read it together and discuss it. So today we were talking about the topic of holy name. We read a part of the purport. So I've stopped just right where Prabhupada is describing 10 offenses. So probably we could discuss it next time. So thank you so much. If there are any questions. So thank you, Caitanya Candra Caran Prabhu. Now we're gonna make a short announcement. Then we can spend some time to see to the questions. So dear devotees, if you watch us on YouTube, send us your questions to our website, asiavaragi.com. If you're in Zoom, raise your hands. We will turn your mic on. So we stopped right when Srila Prabhupada is describing 10 offenses of the holy name. It's interesting that Prabhupada says that by chanting holy names, we can root out the offenses of the Lord. So it's about the aparadha. But then, furthermore, Srila Prabhupada says that when someone offends the holy name, he will not be able to get his desired result. It's in my own words. And then the 10 offenses. So probably in the next class we should come back to this topic. So now a few words about Sambandha Jnana. If a person does not have the correct Sambandha Jnana, Sambandha Jnana means understanding of the essence of things and their cooperation, the nature, the understanding of the nature of God, the fact that the God is a personality. If you don't understand your own nature and the processes connecting me with the Lord, and in connection with that, I've just recalled one story from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Raghunandana Das Goswami. So he set off to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he was helped. He was followed by one Brahmin. So a scientist, a scholar. He was so much devoted to Lord Ramachandra. So he wouldn't even say no words except Rama. So he expressed his gratitude to Raghunath Das Goswami. He said, like, can I serve you? And Raghunath Das Goswami has allowed him to do that. So the Brahman was carrying his things, and he was chanting the holy names of the Lord. Raghunath Das Goswami was thinking like, wow, what an elevated devotee he was. And when they came up to Lord Chaitanya, so Lord Chaitanya didn't even pay attention to this Brahman. He wouldn't even look in his way. But as a result, Raghunath Das Goswami has learned that Brahma, he had Sambhagna Gyan in the wrong way. He would chant in Rama's name 24/7 just because he wanted to become Rama himself. So those were the result of the presence of Mayavada's development. So that's why Sambhagna Gyan is very important. Another thing that I wanted to pay attention to. So Srila Bhakti Saraswati Thakur says that even if you're not well educated, even if you don't have this pure spiritual knowledge, give me a second, please. So if someone worshiping someone and he was no happiness, you cannot call him a servant. So even if we are not well educated, but if we don't have this pure devotion, pure spiritual knowledge, so bhajan is not possible. So again, if we are not well educated, so I got confused here a little bit. So the thing I wanted to say is that, so recently we've read a purport to the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila said that even if a person does not have a lot of knowledge, even if he's not well educated, anyways, he can be called a pure devotee, and he can become a pure devotee. He can get on this path of a devotional service. And then we've come to the conclusion that exactly the devotional service, but not any of our intellectual abilities, some other knowledge, it's not going to open up before you if you're Muni. So the sacred knowledge gets opened up to a person if he is performing his pure devotional service. Even if a person is not educated, but he serves to sincere, truthful Sadguru, so this knowledge opens up. And there's a great verse that we cite very often. Only those great souls that have a strong faith and simultaneously in the Lord and the spiritual master, all the conclusions of Vedas open up by themselves, because Krishna gives knowledge. Krishna discovers this secret to you, and it becomes manifested. The devotee has this knowledge because the Lord gives you this knowledge, because you serve Him, even if you're not well educated. So I wanted to underline this thing. Would you like to add something, Chaitanya Candra? Yeah, back in the time, most of the people, they were not educated, right? But then when some cities started getting built, some factories, some industries, some mechanisms started being created. Well, then people they started getting this education so that the civilization could be controlled. Because people in the cities, they have to have some documents. If you want to control them, they have to have some papers, some documents. But people living on Earth, they didn't need it. So they were attached to the land, to the soul that they had. So they couldn't go anywhere from those places. They couldn't immigrate or change their jobs, change their families. It wasn't possible. People would just work on the lands, having some cows, some other animals, so they wouldn't move. So the seasons of the year, they would be regulating their activities. So they didn't need any documents. There was no point in that. You didn't even had the necessity to control them. So also the trading, so they would be just trading things, and they didn't have to be so well educated. They were doing some useful things, and there was a class of people that would need to understand the philosophy, the essence of life, and they would just spread it, tell about it to other people. So Bhakti-Siddhanta Saraswati, Guru is saying about that. If you can't read, you cannot find a job in the city. Only as a loader, probably. But in the village, you just live there, and you're not supposed to be able to read or write. The land does not demand of you these skills, and the land will feed you, because you're naturally connected to God without even having any documents. You're connected to God without having any documents. But if you live in the civilization, you have to have some papers. If you have no papers, you are nobody these days. So you have to be at the registration place, because anything that changes should be fixed. So why do you have to fix it if it's stable, if it's it doesn't change? In the cities, so many things happen all the time. That's why everything is documented. So the lists of other people, of all the people, the president and the police knows everything about you these days. But in the villages, people would just live chanting holy names and working on the land. And it was enough. So Bhakti-Siddhanta Saraswati says about that. You just had to know the spiritual knowledge. You could just hear that. We're not supposed to be able to write and read. Just hear the holy name. Nothing had to be documented. Your sincerity, your tongue, your body, senses, everything was engaged in serving. So that's the perfection of life.
Vrajamani Prabhu?
Vrajamani Prabhu? Hare Krishna, please accept my obeisances. So I have a few questions, but probably let's just do one. So one of my questions. So an example of Ajamila. We've been reading a lot about Ajamila for a long time. So remember what he said in the end of his life. Right before Yamadutas would take him away. So he pronounced his holy names, he faced Vishnudutas, and then his spiritual life get back on track again. And then you think to yourself, okay, so maybe when I'm dying in the very end, and I give a holy name to one of my children or my wife, I would just, call it, and then I could get liberated And then another thing is that you can be chanting holy names for millions of lives, and still you don't get liberated. So what's the trick? You can be saved in just one life if you chant this holy name even accidentally. Well, just in case, you could give Krishna names to all of you, to all the people surrounding you. So maybe we should even not chant the holy name. But if you give Krishna Rama to all the people surrounding us, maybe there's no need. I mean, you will be saved. So Jamila, he was calling up Narayana. That was the name of his son, right? So during all these 2 years, Ajamila was calling up his son's name, Ajamila, Narayana, I'm sorry. So Rajamani Prabhu, I understand your question probably in a different way. The sense is, the essence is that so it's all about Namabhas. Namabhas has opened this spiritual path for himself. It's not about Ajamila doing that, but Namabhas has done that. If you reach Namabhas, we also receive what Ajamila does. But the way I understand, so 10 topics of Srimad Bhagavatam, for example, that's a good path to figure out what these 10 topics are about. So we know the purpose, the aim, the process. The purpose is the main thing, probably. So Rupa Goswami calls it well, the purpose is important, but the process is not important. Some others think that the process itself is important and the purpose will come itself. So I'm confused here. So Niyama Vigraha means following the process for the sake of the process itself. Niyama Vigraha. It's like it's about 2 obstacles in the path of developing bhakti. Can I add something, if you will? Well, we've discussed it in connection with Ajamila. When Ajamila has repeated Namabhas, and he got rid of all the sins that he had accumulated both in his previous lives and his present life. So he repeated it offenselessly. Namabhas, there can be different Namabhas of different levels. But what about these controversial things? Even if you chant holy names for millions of lives, and it's not about getting rid of all your sins, it's about Prema Bhakti. So there's a verse in Chaitanya Candra Caran. So the one that offenses, performs these 10 offenses and chants Hare Krishna will not get the love of God, the divine love. And this is already different from the state of mind of Ajamila, that he was chanting on the level of Sankirtan Manabhas. But a devotee that has a purpose as a love to God, but he still performs these offenses. So that's how this controversy gets solved. Just imagine about performing these 10 offenses. How can you move forward? He criticizes everyone all the time. He does not understand the difference between Shiva and Rama and Krishna. He does not listen to his spiritual master. He denies the holy scriptures. Of course, and it is said that it's better for this person not even chant. And he preaches at the same time to some people that do not have any faith. You can be chanting like that for the millions of lives, but it's better for you to not even chant.
Да, мы недавно читали письмо Шрила Прабхупады, где он говорит.
So recently we've read one of Srila Prabhupada's names when it says it was in the context to one of his disciples. So he said, "You'd better not even chant." So I thought to myself, "Oh my God, that's like the only instrument to get closer to God, chanting." But Srila Prabhupada says, "You'd better not even chant." Yes, it is better. The point is that if you chant performing purposeful offenses, you'd better stop chanting. If you chant, you have to try to avoid these offenses. This is the righteous chanting. But every person performs these offenses on purpose, he'd better stop chanting. So this person, he would harm not only himself, but all the other people as well. And all the people, these people, they're very dangerous. They could destroy the whole movement.
Да. Дамодара Прия Матаджи. Я сейчас
Дамодара
скоро
Прия
найду
Матаджи.
это письмо и прочту. Пока Дамодара Прия, пожалуйста.
So I'll try to find this letter and I will read it aloud.
Кришна, спасибо большое за обсуждение. Меня слышно?
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for the discussion.
Панчана Чаран Прабху, я хотела вас разочаровать. Мы уже давно эту книгу презентовали на канале.
I wanted to say that we presented this book a long time ago on the channel. Oh, so I thought that I was the first one.
Это Кустанай.
Что это?
Кустанай.
Кустанай даже.
Она из Кустаная. Она мне прислала.
So she lives in
Она мне
Sinai.
прислала эту книгу.
Кустанай даже.
So Karbajana Prabhu said that she sent this book to me. So she was ahead of all of us. So probably she's more pious than people living in Almaty.
Да. Знаете, у меня вопрос такой возник сейчас. Вы когда сказали, что если человек повторяет с оскорблениями, лучше вообще не повторять.
So if a person, you said that if a person chants with offenses, he'd better stop chanting at all. Sometimes you go to Kirtan and then your sadhana becomes worse. At the same time, this is Kirtan, it's about chanting holy names. Why does it happen? Wow, so if you go to good Kirtanam, your sadhana becomes worse? Maybe there was too much prasadam for you?
Наверное.
Karbajana Prabhu, could you comment on that? Oh yeah, prasadam probably would be the case. Could be several reasons for that. Maybe the deterioration of your enthusiasm, it goes down, it gets weakened, gets weak. The depth, some kind of depth goes away. Could be about the comparison. For example, when we heard kirtans, the very first ones back in the days, so Prabhu Vishnu Maharaj, I heard the first kirtan from him. So we also had our own kirtans, we knew what kirtans were, but right before he came, we didn't even know what kirtan was. So when he came to us personally, he started chanting kirtan. We started understanding what it was. And I said to yourself that after him, we couldn't support this level of kirtans. I understood that I had no voice, no hearing, nothing. Just an emptiness. If you mean this, so it's probably the thing about the comparison. So probably I'm not so inspirational. I cannot be at the same level when I compare myself to the others. But when I came back from Vrindavan for the first time, so we came back to Moscow, it was the 90s, it was a reconstruction, a horrible time. So it's a totally wild world in front of our eyes. After Vrindavan and Mayapur, we got afraid. Like, what is this? We thought to ourselves, but this was our home, Russia.
Так. У нас вопросы есть с YouTube? Пока вопросы...
Are there any questions on YouTube?
Второй вопрос, да?
So, Rajamani Prabhu, do you want to ask your second question?
Сегодня я очень добрый.
Да. Ну, я
I'm very kind today.
задал, и поэтому у меня третий пока на сегодняшний день.
So,
Вот я хочу прочитать текст. Сейчас
third
скажу.
question.
10-я песень,
So I wanted to read
90-я глава, 42-й
a text from
текст.
10th canto.
Минутку. Прочитаю сам текст и комментарий.
So read the text itself and the purport.
На русском. Кто сможет перечесть всех великих ядовов, если
So the one that could list all the Yadavas that Ugrasena was surrounded by the people of 30 trillion people, and the comment, the purport of Srila Prabhupada
или учеников Прабхупады.
or his disciples.
Шрила Вишванатха
Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti explains,
it
it says that the servants of the King Ugrasena had 30 trillion people surrounding him. So he's given us this rule of hermeneutics that is called Kapijana Ladhi Karana, the logics of mentioning the birds. So it says that you have to sacrifice some birds, and this number of it's called partridge actually, and you had to know the definite number of these partridges to be sacrificed. That's kind of a bird. So it's really confusing. This text is really confusing. This purport is really confusing for me. So what is that all about?
Мне ответить или...
Это также мой вопрос, Карабажин. Куда вопрос? К тебе только, а ты...
Я могу просто попытаться.
So I may try, as I understand,
Я все это укладываю по полочкам.
and the way I put it onto my shelves, on my mind, while listening to the others as well. So for me,
Я, по крайней мере, так объясняю себе, есть
at least I
вариантов ответа.
explain to myself one of the variants, possible variants of answers.
Там, если так взять,
So these trillions,
исходя из нашего
all these big
восприятия
numbers.
и
So
восприятия
based on our
двухмерного,
perception of
то просто
2 or
там
3
нету
dimensional things,
не
there's no
помещается
place for us to even imagine these numbers, all the servants of the King Ugrasena. But there are some other realities, and we understand that. There are some demigods that live in 14 planetary systems. Somehow they cross with each other. They open up some portals, and Krishna in Vrindavana, so he would cross a lot of places, because the spiritual world is like a lotus flower. So we go down to the material level, so we have the 4th, the 5th dimensions. So the same thing in Srimad Bhagavatam in the 5th canto. So mandala is described, Goloka is described, the flat earth, or it's not flat if we take a look at it based on a two-dimensional system. If we understand that there are some other dimensions and the other flow of time and space, consequently, we can understand that we can admit that our perception is very limited compared to the vision of, to the perception of demigods. So when Brahma came to Dwarka, and the servant of Krishna said, Brahma, just wait a second, Krishna is busy. And then Brahma learned that Krishna was having a discussion with someone. And Krishna said, what Brahma? What kind of Brahma has come? And Brahma, he got so surprised. He thought of himself to be the only one in the universe. So he came up to Krishna, and Krishna said, I have a lot of Brahmas. So he called up all the Brahmas existing in his creation. 1,000-headed Brahmans, million-headed Brahmans. So how can we even understand these numbers?
Может быть, я не уточнил вопрос, подумал, что все так же поймут, как я. В комментарии множественное число следует трактовать как 3.
So the multiple number should be considered as 3, not 5, not 6.
Соединение вот этих слов герменевтики и
And this combination of these words, hermeneutics, karmaminansa.
Два вот этих понятия.
So these two notions are
Преданные могут пользоваться логикой
connected here, so the devotees could use the logics of this science, and we could use the instrument of karma mimamsa when reading Srimad Bhagavatam, or use this instrument to the science of bhakti when studying Bhagavatam.
Такова ведическая культура имеется в виду, герменевтика идет.
It's called hermeneutics. It's all about Vedic culture. It's an indefinite number, and they mean 3. So I'm interested in why it's not 7 or 8. It's just hermeneutics. Just like we say a pair, we mean 2. And the same thing here. When we say several, it means 3. It comes down from hermeneutics. So that means that we could use this science. So Vedas are very strict science. So this purport is quite knowledgeable. So hermeneutics, it says that we're talking about several. It means 3. And the way I understand it, so hermeneutics is the science of solving the contradictions. So recently you've said that even things that don't matter so much, they all have to be corresponded to the truth. So we could say that both the main and the secondary things, they all correspond to the truth. So Mataji Olga, and then we'll get to the questions from YouTube. Hare Krishna, please accept my obeisances. Can I also ask a question on Srimad Bhagavatam? In the 4th canto, the Lord Shiva prays to the Lord so that he allows him, Shiva, to perform devotional service according to the Vedas, to Vedic prescriptions. So when Kunti, for example, she was praying saying that Krishna, I'm ready to do everything for you, so just be be together with me, be here. So here I have a question. Serving you according to the instructions of Vedas. Is this, how do you understand it? How do we apply it to us? In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, you can offer anything to me, flower, water, anything, but if you do it with love, I will accept it. But here Shiva says, I'm going to serve you according to the instructions of Vedas. So when a person wants to develop spiritually, wants to advance spiritually, he refers, he takes to Vedas. So he gets instructions both from sadhus, from Vedas. So he's got Vedas and some instructions, and he's got no other questions. For him, so this following is all he needs. But when he gets the level of liberation, he gets liberated from instructions and rules. They don't have this regulative power anymore. He just uses his spontaneous moods. Shiva is just like the same. If he only acts in the material world, he only brings some disturbances. The first thing that he did, he had disturbed Brahma. And not to disturb people, he follows the instructions of Vedas. He does not forget about those. Not to bring some disturbances to people. Avadhutas, back in time, Lord Chaitanya was following the instructions of Vedas. But the Lord was Avadhuta actually. But in the presence of Lord Chaitanya, Chaitanya was regulating. He was explaining these things to people. Nityananda was even criticized for that. Then Lord Chaitanya was defending him, was protecting him. He said that you need to behave according to Vedas. So Shiva is helping, is asking for help, because Navadhuta is beyond all these instructions. So he's asking, please allow me to follow Vedas, not to disturb people, because he disturbs the philosophy of Mayavada. So that's how I understand why Shiva is asking Lord Krishna for the instructions. Can we ask for a couple of questions from YouTube? Yes?
Дорогой Гуру Махарадж, примите, пожалуйста, наш поклон с мужем. Мы готовимся к беременности, для нас это очень важное и ответственное дело.
So, we together with my husband are getting ready to have a child, to get pregnant. So please give your blessings to us. Yeah, that's a good thing. We need children. To our happiness, more and more children are born in devotees' families. So the process keeps going. And it's a good movement. So this movement progresses. We have more and more good children. So another question. How is chanting connected with the mission of Guru? So how is chanting connected with the mission of Lord? How can it not promote performing the mission of Guru? If you chant righteously, the whole mission will be okay. So what's the question itself is not clear to me. It seems to me that the answer is obvious.
Было сказано.
Can you read it again?
Матушка Эльмира,
Да,
прочитайте погромче.
сейчас. Как воспевание связано с медитацией на миссию гуру?
How is chanting connected with the meditation to Guru's mission? If I have this meditation in my heart,
Два вопроса.
can I
получается, Рабат Михаил.
say that it's not attentive?
Я что-то не уловил,
Chanting.
честно говоря.
I don't. Харбачна
Если
Prabhu
в
says
сердце
that
есть
he doesn't understand
одновременно
Kuchin. So
медитация на миссию гуру, можно ли сказать, что это внимательное воспевание?
Мгм.
Да. Уже так можно сказать, да, можно.
So if I have in my heart the meditation on the Guru's mission, so this is an attentive mission. We can say so. The attentive chanting, I'm sorry.
Но тут говорится по-другому вопрос ставится. Если это так, это уже какое-то внимательное воспевание. Можно
So if you have this mission of the Guru in your heart, this could be an attentive chanting.
И вторая часть какая была?
Это и есть вторая часть.
Ага, да.
So this was the second part of the question.
Тогда следующий вопрос.
Следующий
Next
вопрос
question.
от Антона. Скажите, пожалуйста, как неблагодарного человека научить благодарности?
How do I teach an ungrateful person to be grateful?
и бьют его палкой.
So we say that
Ставят в
you're
угол,
ungrateful and we beat him with
на
a
стол
stick,
можно поставить на ночь.
send him to a corner, put him on his knees and salt,
На мать, как говорится.
show him who's right.
Благодарные люди, да. Это образование.
Well, that's all about education.
Культура.
Education, culture,
Благодарность,
it's all
я бы
necessary.
сказал,
To be
в нашем,
grateful,
вот, измерении
so
жизни
gratitude.
это редкое качество,
It,
довольно-таки и
grateful
довольно
people are rare these days. It's quite a sublime quality in our dimension. We don't see it a lot in our
в
culture.
Индии, скажем, я больше это
In
видел.
India,
Меня
I've
шокировало
seen this
несколько, насколько
quite more.
люди
I was
могут
even shocked.
запомнить хорошие вещи.
So people, they
То есть запоминают крепко.
keep good things in their mind for a long time.
В нашем понимании, если мы долго не общались, скажем, с кем-то,
In our understanding, if we
долго не
haven't
общались, но как бы забываем, все как бы уходит, там все уже не
communicated with
нет,
someone for a long time,
уже всё вспомнил.
this person just disappears
Всё,
in
что
our
вы
lives.
хорошее сделали тут же. Он всё
But in India, this person will remember everything you have made.
То есть
I
меня
mean,
даже это
in a good
шокировало
sense.
в Индии. Вот я видел эту их как бы природу.
I saw this nature in India,
Вот в их
this
мире,
nature of
в нашем
being
понимании,
grateful.
благодарные люди, да?
In our understanding, these people are very grateful.
В нашей же культуре мы видим, ну,
In our culture, we
редкое
see
качество такое. Иногда
that
даже
this
не
quality
видим
is really rare.
на таком.
Sometimes we don't even see it on such a level.
Обычно мы напоминаем друг другу: я для тебя сделал то-то,
Usually we
и то-то нужно еще
remind
продолжить.
ourselves, remember, I've done this for you and that.
Когда
Do you remember?
это было давно, он скажет уже. Это не
The other
считается.
person could say, I know it was a long time ago, it's not counted anymore.
Мы выкинули
I've
этот
paid
счет,
for that
оплачиваем.
already.
Как-то вот я вижу такое отношение было.
I've repaid. So I see this kind of
Одно из правил есть
attitude.
для человека цивилизованного.
So one of the rules for a civilized person that wants to climb up a professional ladder, you don't forget your friends that are still at the bottom of this ladder.
Не забывать тех учителей, которые были у меня, которые
So don't
способствовали
forget
моему развитию как-то, и от
teachers
которых я пошел дальше, допустим, там.
that have promoted my development. So you have to be grateful.
И это редко встречается.
You don't see this a lot,
Особенно благодарность по отношению к духовному учителю.
especially gratitude
Ну, явно вот
to
предназначены
your
для
spiritual
жертвы.
teacher.
Для жертвы предназначены. Они живут жертвой, жертвуют собой.
Because
Особенно по
spiritual
отношению
teachers,
к
they
ним.
sacrifice themselves.
Быть
You have to be
благодарным.
grateful to them,
Пророкам, которые приходили, также
to
к
the
людям,
prophets
знаем, мы должны
that has
иметь
come,
это чувство
to the sages,
причастности.
to the
Как
saint people.
удивительно интересно, вот знал о Достоевском одно, интересную деталь. Я вам
So I've just learned one very interesting detail about Dostoevsky.
Он представьте себе, этот человек считал любое злодеяние в
So
мире
he said that
самооскорблением.
every bad thing happening in the world, he took it as a personal offense. See, some people do some bad things in the world, but he felt it as his personal offense to his own address.
В нашем измерении обычно таких людей не
So in our dimension, you don't see these people, they just don't exist.
такого я не видел человека.
You would say, I haven't seen this person in my life.
Ну также и благодарность, ну где, допустим, где я могу видеть благодарность в полной степени. Я, например,
So where can I see this gratitude? I can see this gratitude in my spiritual master related to Srila Prabhupada. I always see, every time I talk to my spiritual master, I can see such a power of bhakti. So Prabhupada, that heads our movement, as the head of our movement, they only talk about Prabhupada. They talk about all the details, over and over again, all the episodes from his life connected with the Prabhupada. This is gratitude. It's not one of those things that you could pay for and then throw it away. It's impossible. So in a few words, and the last question.
Что значит, что человек утвердился в оскорблениях?
What does it mean when you said that a person is firm in performing offenses? It means that he's brave, he's not afraid of committing offenses. A devotee, if he practices spiritual life, he tries to avoid committing aparadha, committing offenses. If he does something and then he is told that this aparadha, he's like, oh, no, I don't want to do that. He tries to avoid committing offenses. The person that is firm in committing offenses, he's not even afraid of that. Even if he's sad to stop it, he would continue doing whatever he was doing before.
Hare Krishna. Спасибо, Chaitanya Candra Caran Prabhu.
So thank you, Chaitanya Candra Caran Prabhu.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Divine Mills Chaitanya Candra Caran Prabhu ki jai. Jai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Спасибо, дорогие преданные.